Do you think you know Iran from the headlines? Think again. This is a country the world calls old-fashioned, yet nearly half its population is under 30, raised entirely in the digital age. Despite being labeled an adversary, this place is home to the largest Jewish community in the Middle East outside of Israel, complete with synagogues, schools, and a permanent seat in parliament. So, what is Iran really? A contradiction or a story the world has consistently refused to tell honestly? Don't answer too fast, because the Iran you're about to encounter is not a slogan or a warning. It is a living place, full of beauty, tension, pride, and contradictions that will rearrange everything you thought you knew. Welcome to Iran. To understand why Iran so consistently sits at the center of global tension, you only need to look at a map. Iran is not simply a country. It is a vast natural fortress shaped by mountains and sea. The Alborz Range rises in the north, the Zagros stretch across the west, and deep waters guard the south. This geography has defined a nation known for resilience, one that has proven extraordinarily difficult to conquer, and yet surprisingly vulnerable to isolation. Its location is both an advantage and a burden. Iran forms the only continuous land bridge connecting Central Asia and the Caucasus to the Indian Ocean and the broader Middle East. At the heart of this strategic position lies the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow corridor through which nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply moves every single day. Even a minor disruption in those waters can shake global markets and send fuel prices climbing in cities thousands of miles away. Iran did not seek this kind of global attention. Its geography made it unavoidable. There is also a distinction that Iranians are quick to clarify. They are Persian, not Arab. That difference runs deep through language, history, and identity, shaped by thousands of years of imperial memory. More than 2,500 years ago, Cyrus the Great issued what many historians consider the earliest known charter of human rights. The consciousness of a modern Iranian still carries the weight of that ancient legacy. That enduring pride often collides with contemporary global expectations. For many Iranians, preserving their civilizational identity feels more important than easing international pressure. Beneath the political headlines lies a powerful demographic reality. Roughly 50% of Iran's population is under 30 years old. This generation grew up alongside technology, navigating digital restrictions with ease and using virtual private networks as instinctively as checking the weather. Despite sanctions and internet controls, Iran maintains high levels of social media engagement and strong educational achievement across the region. Walk into a fashionable cafe in Tehran, and you might find young women in colorful headscarves holding the latest smartphones, casually debating French cinema, or recent breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. The atmosphere feels ambitious and forward-looking, layered beneath long-standing traditions. Iran is often portrayed as a uniform Islamic state, but the reality is far more layered. The country is home to the largest Jewish community in the Middle East outside of Israel. Jewish citizens hold a permanent seat in parliament and maintain their own hospitals and synagogues in the capital. Iran is also the birthplace of Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic faiths. In the city of Yazd, a sacred fire has burned continuously for more than 1,500 years, surviving invasions, revolutions, and sweeping social change. These details reveal a society composed of many layers, where ancient beliefs and contemporary life continue to exist side by side. Step into the Nasir al-Mulk Mosque in Shiraz just after sunrise, and you will immediately understand why this space remains a sanctuary of color in a country so often depicted through a gray and monochromatic lens. The building dates to the late 19th century, constructed during the Qajar dynasty. Its greatest strength lies in the carefully calculated way it captures and transforms morning sunlight. As the light travels across the city, it passes through rows of stained glass windows into the prayer hall, filling the interior with amber, ruby, and deep purple tones. These motifs spread across hand-woven carpets and climb the stone columns, creating a mosaic that is always in motion, feeling alive even when the architecture itself holds completely still. This fleeting moment of brilliance lasts for less than an hour before the sun rises higher, and the hall returns to stillness, leaving behind a quiet reminder of the elegance that continues to flourish behind the noise of public opinion. About an hour's drive from Shiraz, the landscape opens into a vast plain where enormous stone columns rise from the earth, appearing like the bones of a once dominant empire. This is Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, built over 2,500 years ago to display power on a scale that still inspires awe in modern visitors. At its peak, the empire linked dozens of cultures stretching from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean, and Persepolis served as the grand stage where that unification was put on full display. As you climb the grand staircase, designed with wide and shallow steps to allow royal delegations to ascend with dignity, you encounter detailed stone reliefs depicting messengers from every corner of the ancient world. These processions lead to what is often called the Gate of All Nations, where envoys from Africa, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Central Asia once gathered beneath towering stone guardians. The site also bears clear evidence of its violent end. In 330 BC, Alexander the Great captured Persepolis, and part of the complex was set on fire. Darkened patches still mark sections of stone where those flames once burned, leaving the memory of that conquest permanently etched into the ruins. In the center of Isfahan, the city opens into a vast public rectangle stretching nearly 1,600 feet from end to end. When Shah Abbas I completed Naqshi Jahan Square in the early 17th century, he created a space where faith, royalty, and commerce were woven into a single harmonious design. Along the two-story arcades, merchants have traded spices and silks for centuries and continue to do so today, even as they navigate the complexities of a modern, sanctioned economy. The square is anchored by the Shah Mosque, its towering entrance angled toward Mecca, while maintaining the symmetry of the public space, and by the Sheikh Lotfola Mosque, whose cream-colored dome shifts its hue as afternoon light settles over the city. Inside the Ali Kapu Palace, royal balconies still overlook the field where polo matches were once played. Beneath the great domes, a single whisper can travel across the tiles and return amplified by architectural precision, so refined that no modern system has found reason to improve upon it. Along the banks of the Zayandeh River stands the Sayose Pole Bridge, a stone landmark with 33 arches that have sheltered the social life of Isfahan since the early 17th century. This structure was designed to be far more than a crossing point. It functions as a tiered gallery where people have always gathered to escape the heat and share the news of the day. The bridge now also stands as a silent witness to the environmental challenges facing the region. The Zayandeh River often runs completely dry due to shifting climate patterns and water management pressures. Instead of watching flowing water, residents walk across a dry riverbed or gather beneath the arches to sing traditional songs about the river's return, turning the bridge into a site of cultural longing and quiet resilience. The bridge remains an enduring symbol of Isfahan's soul, framing the persistent spirit of a people who find ways to gather and sing even when the waters beneath them have vanished. In Yazd, elevated rectangular towers rise above flat rooftops and function as a sophisticated passive cooling system known as badgirs, or wind catchers. These structures capture high-altitude breezes through vertical vents and channel the air downward into living quarters below. The precise operation of these wind catchers reduces indoor temperatures by about 18 degrees Fahrenheit without any mechanical power or electricity. This architectural design ensures livability in an environment where summer temperatures frequently exceed 100 degrees. Underground channels known as qanats transport water originating in distant mountains to reservoirs beneath the houses, facilitating a natural form of evaporative cooling. The survival of Yazd depends on the strategic management of airflow and the thermal properties of raw earth, a system refined across thousands of years of uninterrupted habitation. At the desert's edge in Yazd, twin circular masonry cylinders known as Towers of Silence, or dakmas, occupy the summits of barren ridges. These structures provided a site for the Zoroastrian practice of sky burial. The masonry walls reach 30 feet in height and enclose a roofless interior paved with flat stones. Followers of this faith consider both fire and soil to be sacred elements that must remain pure. This method avoids polluting the ground during decomposition and avoids violating fire through cremation. A central ossuary pit, measuring 10 feet deep, receives the bleached remains once the process concludes, with layers of lime, charcoal, and sand, accelerating disintegration, and ensuring that rainwater entering the earth remains free of biological contaminants. Surface temperatures reach 159 degrees Fahrenheit on the salt flats of Dasht-e-Lut. According to NASA satellite data, this thermal record establishes Dasht-e-Lut as the site of the highest ground heat ever measured on Earth. Massive wind-carved ridges known as kaluts rise 200 feet above the desert floor and extend 80 miles across the horizon, resembling the geometry of an abandoned city. The Persian onager, a wild-ass native to this region, inhabits the fringes of these salt plains, reaching speeds of 43 miles per hour to navigate the vast distances between sparse water sources. The heavy silence of the plains is broken only by the movement of sand grains scraping against sun-bleached stone. On Hormuz Island in the Persian Gulf, the soil displays a spectrum of yellow, purple, white, and orange across volcanic hills. The most striking feature is the red beach, where the sand is a deep crimson due to an exceptionally high concentration of iron oxide in the earth. When the waves hit the shore, the water itself appears to turn the color of blood. This vibrant red earth is also entirely edible and has been used for centuries as a primary ingredient in local cooking. Residents collect the mineral-rich soil to create a traditional sauce mixed with salt, orange peel, and local fish, spread over flatbreads or used to flavor stews. This may be the only place in the world where the landscape and the kitchen are so directly and physically connected. For over 1,000 years, a mountain at the edge of Tehran has been exhaling sulfur through cracks in its own rock. Geologists call it dormant. Poets call it the prison of Zahak, the serpent-shouldered tyrant of the Shahnameh, Ferdowsi's 10th century national epic. In the myth, Zahak was captured by the hero Feridun and chained inside the mountain until the end of time. Mount Damavand still vents sulfur. The myth says this is Zahak breathing. The geology says it is residual heat from a volcanic system that has not yet completed its cycle. These two explanations have coexisted in Persian cultural memory for over 1,000 years, without either one displacing the other. That is itself a precise description of how Iranians tend to hold the relationship between ancient meaning and modern fact. Damavand rises to 18,460 feet, making it the highest volcano in Asia, the highest peak in the Middle East, and the highest point in Iran by a margin so wide that every other Iranian mountain appears modest by comparison. The mountain appears in poetry, on currency, and in political symbolism across the entire ideological spectrum of Iranian history, because it is the one physical feature of the landscape large enough to carry meaning for every Iranian, regardless of region, religion, or political position. Since early 2026, Iran has carried a sound the world only hears through news reports. Explosions along the Persian Gulf coast, drone strikes near Tehran, nights when sirens move faster than information. For most Iranians, this is not a beginning. It is the continuation of a pressure that has existed for decades, now made louder, more physical, more immediate. Internet blackouts erase entire cities from the inside. Fuel shortages appear without warning. Power cuts rotate through neighborhoods like weather. And through all of it, people open their stalls in the bazaar, argue about football, and make tea. Iranian women now hold more than half of the country's university degrees in medicine, engineering, and law. Yet fewer than 1 in 5 enters the formal workforce. The same woman who mastered chemical engineering may be legally required to obtain her husband's written permission before accepting a job. The same woman who walks with her hair visible risks detention. And this is the same country where the national currency has collapsed so completely that gold coins sewn into jacket linings have replaced savings accounts. Goods move through shadow networks out of Dubai and Istanbul because the official economy has long since ceased to function on its own. Tehran sits inside a natural bowl formed by the southern foothills of the Alborz Mountains, at an elevation of roughly 3,900 feet above sea level. The city was never designed to hold 15 million people. It expanded into that number through decades of rural migration, economic centralization, and the gravitational pull of a capital that absorbed everything moving toward it. The result is a megacity that functions at a scale its infrastructure was never built to support, and that functions anyway through improvisation, density, and a collective tolerance for pressure that would be remarkable anywhere else on Earth. The skyline tells the story in layers. In the north, glass towers and tree-lined boulevards occupy the high ground, where the air is marginally cleaner and rent runs several times higher. In the south, the city flattens into a horizontal spread of workshops, warehouses, and apartment blocks, where the informal economy is not a supplement to official commerce, but its full replacement. What defines Tehran as a survival environment is not poverty alone. It is the cognitive load of living inside a system designed to frustrate. Every transaction requires navigating a workaround. International payment cards do not function. Communication tools are restricted by regulation and unblocked by VPN, in a cycle of prohibition and circumvention that both sides fully understand and neither fully resolves. The people of Tehran carry this load without making it visible. They have learned to work around every obstacle as reflexively as water finds its level. There is a concept in Persian and Islamic practice called sabr. It translates roughly as patience, but patience does not fully capture it. Sabr is the active, dignified endurance of suffering as a form of spiritual integrity. The decision to remain composed, not because nothing is wrong, but because composure itself is an act of meaning. In a country experiencing simultaneous economic collapse, military conflict, social restriction, and international isolation, sabr functions less like a religious instruction and more like a survival technology. The Nazr tradition extends this spirit into daily life. When a family makes a sacred vow, they prepare and distribute food to anyone who arrives, strangers included, creating informal food networks that operate entirely outside any government welfare structure. In the neighborhoods of South Tehran, where government services are thinnest, these networks are not supplementary to the social contract. They are the social contract. The Qashqai are a Turkic-speaking tribal confederation of the Zagros Mountains, whose seasonal migration has continued without significant interruption for at least 5 centuries. Twice each year, they follow the retreating snow north and east, ascending from winter lowland pastures near Shiraz towards summer grazing grounds on high plateaus above 8,000 feet. The full migration covers distances of up to 300 miles on foot, across terrain that the Iranian road network still does not reach. Tents are designed to be assembled and disassembled in under 2 hours. The kilims and flat-woven textiles produced by Qashqai women during sedentary periods are not decorative items sold to tourists. They are functional floor coverings, storage bags, and dividers within the tent structure, woven in patterns that encode tribal identity and family lineage through color and geometric sequence. What the outside world rarely understands about the Qashqai is the educational profile of the people making this migration. Young men in their 20s and 30s who follow the herds in spring have, in multiple documented cases, completed university degrees in engineering, chemistry, and the sciences. They return not because they have no other option, but because the option of abandoning the migration has not presented itself in a form worth the cost. The formal economy offers them unemployment. The migration offers continuity, identity, and a functional role within a community that has a clear operating system for survival. The village of Palangan in the Haraman region of Kurdistan province is one of the most spatially extraordinary settlements in the world. The houses are built in terrace rows ascending a steep hillside, stacked so closely that the flat roof of one house is the courtyard and entryway of the house directly above it. There are no horizontal streets. Movement through the village is vertical, a continuous staircase rising from the valley floor to the ridge. This arrangement is a direct response to the physical conditions of the site, a south-facing slope with limited flat ground, cold winters requiring solar exposure, and a need to maximize agricultural space below by building upward rather than outward. The annual Pir Shaliar festival a few miles north brings together Kurdish communities for days of music, communal cooking, and ritual practiced in unbroken form for over 1,000 years. It is not a reconstruction. It is an operating tradition that is still running. The Grand Bazaar of Tabriz is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and by some measurements, the largest covered bazaar in the world, a network of interconnected caravanserais and trading halls extending across nearly 11 square miles beneath brick vaulting that dates, in parts, to the 13th century. It is not a museum. It is a working commercial district where carpet merchants, gold traders, and spice vendors conduct daily business in spaces dedicated to the same trades for centuries. A large Tabriz carpet hand-knotted over 2 to 5 years can contain more than 1,000,000 knots per square yard. The family that commissions it invests years of skilled labor into an object that will hold its value more reliably than any financial instrument available to them under current economic conditions. The carpet is not decorative. It is a wealth preservation strategy that has outlasted every currency the country has ever issued. Bandar Abbas sits on the northern shore of the Strait of Hormuz, at the point where the Persian Gulf narrows to its critical minimum width of approximately 21 miles. The city is Iran's primary commercial seaport and the logistical base for the naval forces that monitor the strait's traffic. Approximately 20% of the world's total traded oil passes through the strait every day. The city that sits on its northern shore is therefore not simply a port town, but a permanent pressure point in global energy geopolitics. Summer nights in Bandar Abbas rarely fall below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The combination of heat and moisture from the water creates an atmosphere that most people experience as physically oppressive until they adapt. Those born here organize life around the cooler parts of the day and build social activity into the hours after sunset, when the waterfront becomes briefly bearable. Iran should not exist the way it does, not under this much pressure, not with this many forces working simultaneously to undo it: economic, military, political, environmental, and social. And yet it persists. In the Qashqai migration and the bizarre handshake. In the Nasr meal distributed on a Tehran sidewalk and the carpet that takes 3 years to weave and cannot be sold through any channel the government approves. As the rest of the world begins to understand what it means to live under conditions of sustained instability, where certainty is a luxury and adaptation is the only available strategy, Iran begins to look less like a cautionary tale and more like a country that has been preparing for exactly this future, longer than almost anywhere else on Earth. This story does not end here. It continues in other languages, on other continents, in other places that should not exist and do.